Welcome back, everybody. We've been focusing on safety lately, and we're going to continue to focus on that. So we've kind of examining safety different in different ways. So we first started with safety with an imagery. So kind of coming up with a safe place, maybe a relaxing place, some place that either through imagery or a felt sense of that place. I think for some of you it was a place in which maybe it wasn't relaxing, it was exciting. But being able to carry that with you felt safe. And then we shifted and kind of went to safety within the body with the body scan, and just noticing when and what happens that kind of disrupts safety. Then we shifted to movement, so adding in some movement into the body just to see, okay, what does movement do to this? So today I thought we'd focus on thoughts. Now, a lot of times we tend to feel unsafe in our body because we're having a constant stream of thoughts. In fact, I know you've heard me say this, but I'm going to repeat it. We have 50 to 60,000 thoughts a day. It's a lot. It's a lot of thoughts, a lot of randomness that comes in. Now, it's not just that we have these thoughts and that's it, and we can see them for what they are. In fact, we do the opposite. We usually believe certain thoughts, or even if we have certain thoughts, we might even just see them as truth. If we don't like the thoughts, we might shame ourselves or feel guilty or whatever it might be. And we might even feel like we are our thoughts. A lot of this happens because we have a negativity bias, which means we're predisposed to see the things we don't want to see necessarily, to see kind of the negative. So, for example, if I don't want to think about, that I'm an awful person or something like that, then that's all I'm going to think about. And of course, if that's something I don't want to think about, it's going to be part of those 50 to 60,000 thoughts. And anytime it comes in, I'm going to buy into it, believe it. Guess what? That's going to come in more. So a lot of times the safety piece with this happens to be that we're buying into our thoughts. It's actually our relationship to thoughts that is impacting our safety. Or a sense of safety. And remember, when I say safety, we're loosely using this to represent, a sense of safety. But another way to think about safety, if that word doesn't kind of fit for you, is feeling grounded, is feeling centered, is feeling, kind of regulated inside. So the reason this also happens, that we can feel the opposite of all those things I just mentioned, the opposite of what I'm going to lump together and just say safety or psychological safety. The reason we often feel kind of our relationship to it is one of, I have this, it's true. Well, it's because we're not taught that anything's different, And in fact, a lot of times in our upbringings, we're even taught, if you have this thought, you've heard of impure thoughts, and you've heard of, sinful thoughts, and you've heard of all sorts of stuff. So we start to go, oh, well, what does that mean? Like, what if I have some of these thoughts? Like, what does it mean about me? And we're told, we get this belief, if I'm thinking it, it must be true. And that really isn't true. No matter, thoughts are literally mental secretions. They just are happening. We can generate thoughts, meaning I have a random thought. I can then go, if I relate to it a certain way, if I relate to it as truth, well, I don't really have a lot of choice, but I can kind of generate other thoughts and try to fight it and go, okay, this thought's not true, or whatever it might be. If I do have a different relationship, one that we're going to work on cultivating here, one of a little bit of distance or objectivity with it, well, then can I see it for what it is, and maybe just reassure myself, like, that's not me, like, or that doesn't represent me. Or even, the mindfulness, we talk about non-elaborative thinking. It's like, I don't need to elaborate on that. It's just a thought. I'll come back. Yeah. So Where this comes in is those of you who are parents, you might recognize, and this can count for dog parents, cat parents, fish parents, parents in general, that when you have a thought you're angry with a child or a being you're taking care of, you might have a thought of like, I can't fucking stand you. Like, you don't say it necessarily, but you have the thought, right? Because this is what it means to be human. I see some of you nodding your heads and smiling because it even feels good just to say that doesn't mean anything about you. It doesn't reflect you. Yeah, because that's not behavior. It's a thought and it's happening, and it might be part of your emotional, kind of what's happening in your emotional system, which honestly it is, right? It's a reaction to that. But just because you have the thought doesn't mean that doesn't mean anything about you. It doesn't. Acting on the thought, that's where it starts to get a little hairy, right? So you know, I feel so angry, you know, like with a friend. If I'm thinking of a friend, I feel so angry with you, I could just hit you. I'm not going to say that. I'm thinking it like in my body or in me. It's a thought and an emotion that's coming with it. Do I really want to hit my friend? No. Or kill them or whatever it is that my thought is something? No. I don't want to do any of that. The thoughts might be there. What do I really need in that moment? Yeah, and it comes back to that question. What do I really need right now? What is it? Now, when we get caught up in the thoughts, then we start to go, well, am I a killer? Am I this? No, like none of that. Like, you would know if you are, and you might fantasize. Now that's a different story, and we'll need to talk after if that's happening for you. But this is just what it's like to be human. We have randomness of thoughts. It's just that is the fact. They're so random. Now, what gets tied in here, it gets hard, is that we have a thought and an emotion gets tied to it. This is what we call fusion. They get fused together, just like if you welded two pieces of metal, they fuse, they become one, it gets stuck. So that thought that I have, like I can't fucking stand you, maybe gets fused to shame within me. I don't like having that thought, right? It means something bad about me. So anytime I have that, I feel shame, I shut down, right? And then don't act on what I'm saying. I also don't assert myself. I'm fused with it. This becomes less safe. Yeah? This doesn't feel safe in my system because now all of a sudden I'm having this reaction, which I actually need some help with. Like, meaning I either need to talk to somebody or I need to, like, again, ask myself in that moment, do I need to remove myself from the situation? Do I need some deep breaths? Do I, what is it that I need? But instead, because of the fusion and believing that thought to be real and it meaning something about me, I'm off in never land, right? I'm in this rumination, and then just feeling bad about myself. I actually don't learn how to emotionally disentangle and mentally disentangle in that moment. I feel stuck. So where I'm going with this is the idea, and what we're going to work on today is how do we start to notice thoughts for what they are, as thoughts. Yeah, even labeling them, I think, is a really helpful practice. I'm aware that I'm having the thought, that whatever it is. And as we do that over and over, that fusion starts to weaken. And actually, we call it diffusion, when we can kind of uncouple from that. So can I have this thought and it actually not mean anything except I'm angry and I need to figure out what I need in order to help myself with the anger? Because you know what I do need when I'm that angry at somebody I love? I usually need some space because I'm overwhelmed. There's too much happening. It's usually because, somebody's talking, somebody's pooping their pants, somebody's, yelling. Like, it's just so much stuff. What do I need gets missed because I'm fused with all of it. So, that's diffusion is the relationship that we want to try to work towards, which is one of, these are just thoughts, nothing more. Now, there's a difference between the type of thought when I say, whatever you do, don't think about a pink elephant, right? It just kind of comes up randomly. You didn't try to have it, it came up. Yeah, that's a thought. Okay. If I said, hey, I've got this problem I need help with, and you're internally thinking of, how do I help Brandon with this? Do I do this? Do I do that? And you're kind of running through it. Well, that's a purposeful style of thinking. And so for our purposes, we're really talking about that randomness, the thoughts that are just coming in, that we're not purposefully generating. One little caveat is sometimes we do generate that, meaning we buy in so much to this automatic kind of negative bias and all of that, that we're literally feeding it. Like, maybe I am a bad person, and maybe this, and maybe that, and maybe I need to work, and da 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 da, and that's called rumination. So they're very tightly intertwined. I'm just saying, like, people are like, well then, if I'm thinking to myself, I need to tie my shoelace, is that just a thought? No, because you're having a thought that, yes, you need to look down at your shoelace and tie it, which is different. Yeah. So we're talking about the stuff that really you start to feel. Somebody used to say this saying I like wrapped around the axle. And I say that, it's like we just get wrapped around this internal axle and we feel stuck. Yeah. So I mentioned it just a few minutes ago, but this gets at the idea of rumination. Rumination is another reason we tend to feel unsafe. A lack of safety, a lack of regulation. Rumination is highly, highly associated with depression, anxiety, PTSD, you name it. In fact, if we could literally stop rumination, a lot of our mental health would greatly improve, just by that one piece. It's very hard to do it. Diffusion is part of how we're going to do it. Okay? Mindfulness, coming back every time to safety, to something that a place to ground your awareness, to feel back in the present moment. That's how we can also disrupt that rumination cycle. Yeah. Rumination is never a good thing. There's not a whole lot of nevers you're going to hear me say. That is one of them. Does that mean it's evil? No. It means it's human. It just means it's something that when we notice ourselves doing, it's like, how do I disengage this? This isn't helpful. You can usually tell you're ruminating because it feels like shit. Let's be honest. You're in your head and it just feels bad. It's either like you feel super shamed, you feel freaked out, you feel worried. It's not this ooh, I get to think about, this and that. And it's very negative, and it just makes us feel tighter and tighter inside. Yeah. So the stuff we're going to do today, the kind of working towards safety with thoughts, these are things to be aware of. And then I'll guide the practice, and we'll work with it and just be curious. Like, what happens with thinking that maybe I feel safe to a point and then I don't? And we're going to play with that. What happens when I go back to something that does feel safe and then go back out to kind of notice my thoughts? So just kind of be curious with that today. Okay. Cool. Feel free to get into your mindful posture, whatever that is for you today. Remembering that it's totally up to you whether you want to keep your cameras on, turn them off, lie down, sit, whatever it is. Just taking a few deep breaths as you settle in. Just a way to feel this moment. Just kind of noticing what's present. Asking yourself if whatever posture you've chosen, if that's really what you would like right now. For example, maybe you chose to lie down and you're really like, it's kind of uncomfortable today, I want to sit, or vice versa. Giving yourself what you're really wanting in this moment. In order to approach difficult things, let's try to make the environment, the things we have a little bit of influence or impact on, maybe minimize or make those more comfortable if we can. This might mean turning off anything that may distract you, placing any noise-making devices on silent, remembering that you can close the eyes if that's comfortable or keep them open. And just noticing whichever posture you are doing with the eyes, whether open or closed, the impact that has on safety. It may have none, it may have a lot, or somewhere between. And so, choosing an anchor for the practice today, this can be the breath, it can be sound, it can be an external object, the body. Whichever anchor you choose, see if you can stay with that the entire time. Realizing that sometimes we choose an anchor and maybe there's another one that's calling our attention. Like, let's say we choose the breath and there's a lot of sound today, and maybe during the meditation we shift. Letting yourself shift too. It's just the intention is to stay with the anchor for the practice, unless another one is really calling out to you. So spending some time connecting and really feeling the sensations of the anchor. And as you do this, maybe noticing if there are qualities of safety represented here. As you focus on the anchor, these qualities might be a felt sense of groundedness, regulation, presence, a general sense of I'm okay. Just making some notes of what qualities are here. And if there are qualities missing, and they don't all need to be here. It's just noticing. Am I feeling safe in this moment? If there's anything missing, maybe asking yourself, what do I need right now to feel a sense of safety? What does the part of me that feels dysregulated, unsafe, ungrounded, what does this part need right now? Because it's suffering. If something comes to mind, see if you can offer that to yourself. If there is a felt sense of safety, maybe just savoring this, being with it, really feeling what this feels like. And if you were able to identify what you or a part of you may need right now, and this provided a sense of safety, maybe continuing to provide whatever this is to this part of you. If there is still a lack of safety, that's okay. Maybe staying here for today, focusing on the anchor, and just being curious as best you can of what do I need right now to feel some safety. Remembering you have resources, you can invite in movement if that would create some safety. You can focus on the part of the body that offers this sense to you. You can also bring up the imagery of your safe place. And if, on the other hand, you're feeling a sense of safety, groundedness, wholeness, regulation, any of these qualities, it doesn't need to be all of them, just one or a few. If you're feeling this and would like to continue to work with different aspects of safety, then expanding awareness to include thoughts, thinking, so that now the focus of attention is both on the anchor and curiosity of thoughts. It may help as you do this to imagine a stream your mind's eye, and leaves coming down the stream and placing each thought or a group of thoughts on a leaf and letting it go by, and even feeling it letting go, going off into the distance. Just continuously placing thoughts over and over again. Remembering that you can always come back to the anchor. Whatever anchor you've chosen, there is sensation. The sensation is what we know is real in this moment. Thoughts can be oftentimes illusion. So if you ever feel lost, coming back to direct sensation of the anchor. Freely letting go of the imagery of the stream whenever you need to come back to a sense of safety, groundedness, connection, regulation. And once you feel this, expanding back out to thoughts again. And if imagery is not connecting with you today, that's okay. Maybe practicing labeling thoughts for what they are. You might say to yourself, thinking. If it's a thought that keeps coming up over and over again, or a group of thoughts, maybe labeling it as a story or a recording. If it feels fused with emotion, you might even come up with a label for it, like a story title, the name of a movie. For example, there's the What About Bob story. Remembering that stories are mental habits that are not true nor untrue. Oftentimes, you can just consider them as illusions, tend to believe them as truth. So as you're opening up to thoughts, examining them, see what way of connecting with them, what maybe words I've used, or tips I've offered, skills, imagery. What connects with you? In terms of being able to see thoughts for what they are. Just thoughts, nothing more. And if one of these methods, these ways of practicing diffusion, if they connect with you, then using whichever way you feel most connected to, or whichever way feels most helpful in forming a different relationship to thoughts. And now, when you're ready, slowly letting go of this practice. And ending the practice any way that you want to honor the practice, yourself, your parts.